Welcome to another episode of the Life Creative Podcast. This is a show dedicated to helping you get the most from your creativity, offering you inspiration, suggestions, and discussion. So let's get on with the show. There is two topics I want to cover in this episode. And the first one is perhaps the more important of the two, which is to say thank you. The previous episode, I was sharing some of the frustrations and problems being faced with, figuring out where to go next and how to keep this podcast going, but in a more general way of, sharing that concern with everybody so that I think everyone can relate to those times that they've had the same problem. And, I got some comments back on the post on YouTube and from the podcast itself. So I just want to say thank you to everybody for that. It really does help. And, always try and reach out and thank your creators who make the stuff that you consume, whatever it may be, because it's those kind of comments at those kind of times that really helps them sort of get through and push on to the next creation, whatever it may be. So with that, I just want to say thank you to everybody for reaching out and helping to, push forward into the next episode and then the episode after that and so on, and to just help keep that momentum going. It really does make a difference. So thank you for that. The second topic I want to talk about this week is teaching people. Teaching people is hard, especially if it's technical subjects. And for this in particular, I'm drawing upon all the tutorials and all the videos and everything else that I write regarding programming and sharing that with people and how hard it is to do. And it's kind of funny because my whole goal when I started out doing these tutorials on programming and everything else for people was to target a very specific group of people for the most part. And that is people that are coming at it new. And I find that the common problem with anytime I'm looking to, learn something and I go Google it or whatever, look it up in a book, it always dives into the technical, and I get it. It's programming. It's meant to be technical, but it's always presented in a way that I feel is kind of missing the target, because if it's a simple, sort of beginning steps, basic level for people, you need to teach it in a way they understand. And that requires you to take the topic and figure out how to explain it in kind of computery scientific terms, right? Break it down from the computer science level and put it in a way that people are going to get it and they're going to understand it. And thankfully, because of all the comments I've seen over the years on my blog and my videos and everything else, I feel like I'm hitting that target, because a lot of the time I'll see comments about, thank you, this is the first time someone's explained it in a way that I understand it. Or, finally, this makes sense. Thank you for breaking it down in such simple terms. And that's exactly what I want to hear and see, right? Because that's my goal, is to take these complex topics and break them down in a way that people get it, right? I like to think that, people coming at some of the stuff that I write, maybe they've never done computer programming. Maybe they don't know, how to write a line of code, or what a line of code is, or how an application works, or how software ends up on a device, those kind of things. And so it's always rewarding when people come back and acknowledge that, hey, you made this work for me and I understand it, because that's the goal, right? I'm not looking to demonstrate what I know. And I think that's a lot of the problem, is a lot of the time tutorials and that are written by people to essentially say, look, I know this thing, aren't I clever? And I'm not picking on anyone in particular, but they just sort of read that way. And that's really the wrong way to approach this, right? The idea is that you approach it sharing what you know with somebody else in a way that they'll get it and they'll understand it and they'll gain the knowledge. It's not about what you know. Obviously, you know it because you're explaining it to someone else. So, don't be looking for a pat on the back. The pat on the back you should be looking for, if anything, is for someone to say, I get it. I understood what you were trying to explain to me. That's the reward, right? And the fact that you've helped someone maybe start a career or progress a career. So it's very hard. And, sometimes there are topics that are easy to break down. Maybe you use real world metaphors or things like that. I've done that a lot. You'll see things like, just to sort of get into it a little bit, when people are explaining encapsulation or abstraction. Abstraction in particular is one where you'll see people say about, well, there's a car, right? And a car has wheels and a steering wheel and an engine, and it's all abstracted out and this kind of thing. And, so there are some that you can do it with quite easily, and there are others that are hard. I got a blog post and a video that I've been working on recently, which is taking what I feel is a pretty straightforward subject, but trying to explain it in a way that will make sense to as many people as possible turns out to be really hard. And it's kind of funny because when I started the post, it was a case of, oh, this won't take long. I'll have this finished in an hour and it'll be ready to go. And then a couple of hours later, I'm rereading, and it's like, nope, I'm still just not quite hitting that mark. It made sense to me, but I could see areas where it just would confuse other people or maybe wouldn't make sense, especially if it's something where there's a lot of code and you're trying to explain the code. So, it's funny how sometimes the ones that you think are going to be super easy to do end up being the hardest things to break down. And, that's something I'd like to see more people trying to do, right? Especially helping people get started. Not everybody needs the super complicated computer science understanding of something. They just want to make a thing. And I think that's the reward. And that's the goal that I'm looking for. I'm not looking to explain to anybody, here's everything you need to know to get a degree in this topic. Right? I mean, it's in the world we live in now, it's more a case of, I get it. You want to make your own app? I'm going to show you how to do that. Right? You don't need to be able to recite a book from page 1 to the last page of the book. You just need to know the things that you need to know to make what you want to make. Because if you give people too much theory, they're going to get turned off to it and they're going to lose interest and they're going to walk away and they're never going to come back. But if you just give them enough to keep them excited and moving forward, then I think you've achieved your goal. So for those of you who create things and tutorials and content for other people, be thinking about that, right? The target audience is important. And, knowing how to break things down in a way that works for the audience you want and not being disappointed when you don't get the audience you want is an important task when you're creating stuff. So that's it for this week. I just wanted to put that out there. Hopefully I'm going to get this post wrapped up and figure out a way to simplify it a little more. But with that, stay safe, everybody. We will speak again soon.